No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to address a question that a lot of people have. What should I do with my wedding rings after divorce? I didn't know when I was getting divorced, so my rings sat in a drawer for about 4 years until I felt emotionally ready to part with them. And I had been divorced for a while, and I was kind of needed some money, and I was okay parting with them at that point. I went online and I found this company called MJ Gable. I sent my ring to them. It was fully insured. They paid for the shipping and everything. They insured it. They then bought the ring. I was so happy with what I got for the ring, their integrity, their professionalism, and we have been friends ever since. And MJ Gable is now a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional who I would highly recommend if you're thinking about selling your ring. So if you want to learn more, you can go to mjgable.com and talk to Matt and Ann Gable, the owners. They are such wonderful people, so knowledgeable, so experienced, so trustworthy. You can also find MJ Gable in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to take a minute and talk about a wonderful divorce mediator named Eric Feig. Eric is a mediator, a certified co-parenting specialist, and a disability-informed professional. I love Eric. I've known him for over 2 years. He's so focused. He's an attorney turned mediator, and he can mediate in divorce, business disputes, elder care issues, and neurodiverse families. Eric has such a strong commitment to what he does. He's such a wonderful person. He's a great listener. He's very calm. I just love and trust Eric so much. You can find Eric at feigmediationgroup.com, and you can also find him in the Trusted Professionals section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Have you ever been in an on-again, off-again relationship? Are you in one now? That's what we're going to talk about today. So some people call them on-again, off-again relationships. Some people call them situationships, friends with benefits. And I think everybody listening, including me, have been in one of these relationships where you kind of keep breaking up, getting back together, seeing if you can do better. And they can be so painful. And maybe you're the one who really wants it to work and the other person's kind of on again, off again. So they're really complicated. I think they're really bad for self-esteem. It's going to be hard to meet like a good person. And that's what we want to talk about today. My guest is Alyssa Deneen. Alyssa is an online dating coach, a personal stylist, an author, and really, really a great, very experienced coach. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, thanks, Jackie.
Well, I am excited to have this conversation because I have to believe there are so many people listening who are like, yes, I hate when I'm in this kind of relationship. It feels just kind of yucky and like hopeless and like, how am I supposed to meet someone else? Tell me how you feel about these.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly that. I feel like a lot of people fall into these without even really being conscious of it. It's like, oh, I'm dating a new person. And then before you know it, you realize it's not a real relationship. And it's not even really just dating either. So, the signs are, you're kind of always waiting to see if they're going to contact you. You don't want to reach out first. That's a clear sign. You would never reach out when something exciting happens in your life or something really bad happens. You wouldn't rely on them for anything. Um, and then another sign is that you kind of you don't feel good necessarily when you're with the person, or especially once you leave the person. Like, so say you spend the night the next day you kind of always feel a little bit empty almost.
Like used almost.
Yeah, or yeah, just knowing in your gut that something's off and that it's not real. And not knowing exactly how to pinpoint that or not knowing really how to end it. And I think people are afraid to end these kind of relationships because they're afraid they're not going to meet anybody else. And they don't, rather
Okay.
than being totally alone, they'd rather be in this halfway relationship.
Okay, that was my next question. Why do people stay in these? Like, have you, Alyssa, personally? I know I have
Yeah. Oh,
been in
yeah.
a relationship where you knew right at the beginning it was never going to work long term, but you were like, oh, maybe you just think the person's so hot or he's so
Mhm.
funny and you love being with him because he makes you laugh or the sex is great or it could be
Or
any
you
reason.
think Or you think you're gonna be the one that's gonna change his ways, and he's he's not gonna be that person anymore, he's gonna fall madly in love with you or something, yeah.
Right, right, and you hold on to that hope, and all it does is fill you with frustration and
Mhm,
disappointment, and
mhm.
it's like this roller coaster, and you can't get out of it, and I wanna tell people listening, do you agree with me, Alyssa? You won't meet anyone else until you get out of this. Tell me if you agree, I
Absolutely.
mean, you're the dating
I do agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I think maybe once, 1% of people might still meet someone if they're in this kind of relationship, but the majority of people is you're still invested in someone else. You're not fully putting yourself out there. Even if you are I see it happen all the time with clients. Even if you are going out on other dates, you're kind of doing it just to distract yourself from this other person that you're really kind of half into or halfway in a relationship with. So you're not completely in or out. So it really is even just like subconsciously, I think it holds you back from really meeting someone else.
Well, I always tell people, even really young people a lot, if you are sleeping with somebody, there is no way you are going to be able to go out on a date and fall head over heels with somebody because there is that emotional hold that I think sex causes for women.
Mhm.
And maybe men too. I shouldn't just say just women. But like if you're having sex with someone, that's really personal and you can say, "Oh no, it's just physical." I don't buy it. I think women are emotional and you keep hoping in the back of your mind, even if you won't admit it to yourself, he's going to fall in love with me and things are going to change.
Mhm. Mhm. I really agree with that too. And I think you're right. I think women can tell themselves, I'm the Kim Cattrall of the group, the Sex in the City, the one that's like doesn't
Right.
care. And I think that's very rare for women to be that, able to go in and out of, just having sex and not feel any emotion at all in it. And I think you're right. I think even if you know the person's not right for you, but you're still sleeping together regularly, there is a connection there. There is.
All right, let's get into why people stay in these. Like, what is it? They're afraid to be alone.
They're
They think
afraid that
it's
if
the
they
best I can do. What else?
Yes, it's definitely those 2. Yeah, they're afraid if that they end this one, what if I don't meet anyone else for months or a year or whatever? At least I have somebody to kind of hang out with now and again and some company. So I think they're just afraid that they might not meet anybody else for a long time. Which which may or may not happen, but if you keep continuing in with this other halfway relationship, you definitely won't meet anybody else. So the sooner you kind of cut the tie, the better. And yeah, and I think you're just also then opening yourself up to more vulnerability, getting back out there. I think it's just like a safety net of this other person. And then what was the other thing that you just said? You said something else that was really
They don't want to be alone. They're
yeah.
afraid. Well, you said that. But I think another reason is they might not feel like they're worthy. Like people get
Mhm.
divorced and they're like, well, I'm 50 now and maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe I'll
Yes.
never meet anybody even that's this, even maybe I'll regret it. And what I say to those people is, if you regret it, you can always go back because the on and off again person will resume and pick up the relationship right where you left off.
Yeah. Most likely, yes, I agree with that. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I think it is a worthiness thing, and I think it's, and it's sad but true, and I think it is mostly women, and I think it is something that's not even on a conscious level that you don't feel worthy. I think you just, society tells you like, "Oh, after 50, after 55, whatever it is, it's harder to meet someone, so I may as well just cling on to this one person." But I see it happen all the time. I see people meeting people into their 70s, so that is absolutely not true.
I love hearing that. You're listening to the Divorce Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And I'm here today with Alyssa Deneen, online dating coach, personal stylist, author, and a great, great coach. Alyssa and I are talking about on again, off again relationships. And what we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into like a little deeper into what is going on in the minds of 50-year-old divorced women, because Alyssa and I both were that before we met the loves of our lives. And then we're going to talk about what a healthy relationship looks like that's the opposite of the off again, on again, that's on again all the time. We'll be right back. My entire life, I have heard these words from my family. You are so sensitive. And what's so interesting is I always took that to mean that I needed to work on myself, I needed to change, I needed to not be so sensitive. And then I met Sue Bruckner. So Sue is a holistic relationship coach. Sue started explaining to me that there's a certain type of people who have a brain sensitivity and they can't help being the way they are, and that it wasn't a bad thing. I couldn't believe it because after all these decades, I realized there was nothing wrong with me. It was just the way I was built. So I am so excited that Sue decided to become a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. What Sue is doing is she is putting together a community called Tribe Rising, and it's a membership community for sensitive women. So if you think you fit into this category like me, I would highly recommend getting in touch with Sue. Sue can offer you support, connections with other women who are like this. I just really, really like Sue and I trust her so much. I think you'll get a lot out of this. You can learn more about Sue and Tribe Rising at withintentioncoaching.com or in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to take a minute and talk about a wonderful divorce attorney in Chicago and the suburbs. Her name is Anna Krolikowska, and Anna has been a divorce attorney for a couple decades. Well, actually, she's not that old, maybe 17 years. Anna is wonderful. She's so ambitious. She's so caring. She's so dedicated. I really, really trust Anna. If you want to learn more about Anna, you can find her at annklaw.com or in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff and I'm your host. Ever been in an on again, off again relationship? Sure you have. I have, Alyssa has, everyone I know. I don't even know one person who hasn't. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Maybe it's something everybody has to experience so that when you do meet a healthy relationship, you really, really appreciate it. That's what we're talking about today. My guest is Alyssa Deneen, online dating coach, personal stylist. The name of Alyssa's company, by the way, is Style My Profile, which is stylemyprofile.nyc.com. Okay, Alyssa, let's talk about the mindset. So, how old were you when you got divorced?
I was 41 and yeah, started dating, and then I met my partner online, as you know.
At what
Um,
age?
and then I was 43, almost 44.
Okay, so you were lucky. I got divorced at 41 also. I didn't meet the love of my life until I was 49. Now,
Mhm.
everybody listening, I don't want you to think it's going to take you that long. That's why you're listening to Alyssa and me, because we want to make sure it doesn't take you 8 years to figure out you're worthy of a healthy relationship. It only took Alyssa 2. But for me, it took a really long time, and I was in a couple of on again, off again relationships. It was kind of a theme with me. I felt like I subconsciously didn't deserve to be treated like, "Oh, I was now, in my mid to late 40s. This is the best I can do." And you might be listening and thinking to yourself, like, well, how did you get out of it? How did you finally meet that really good person? Which, by the way, I've been with now for 10 years. So, again, I'm going to be 60 this year.
Congratulations.
But I felt like couple things that I tell me if you agree with me, Alyssa. I didn't do the work. Like, I didn't, there was no divorce coaches when I got divorced.
Mhm.
There's no mediation wasn't what it is today. I have a terrible co-parenting relationship to this day. And I didn't do the work. I didn't have the resources. I didn't know about them. They really didn't exist yet. But I'm not going to blame it all on that. I didn't even do the work in therapy. I mean, I just dated all these men who were terrible for me. And it wasted years of my life. And that's okay because I finally got to the point when I was 49, I was like, I broke up with this one guy and I was like, I don't care if I'm alone the rest of my life. I'm not going to let someone treat me this way. This is not healthy. I don't see it working long term. What the hell am I doing? So
Mhm.
I broke up. I literally was so at peace. But by then my kids were growing up, they were healthy. I had a good job. I was doing Divorce Girl Smiling. I felt good about myself. And see, don't you think that's the key, Alyssa? You have to have self-esteem and you have to have self-worth. Because if you don't, you're going to attract these on again, off again bad people. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's huge. I think a big part of it is getting to the point where you actually are truly happy on your own. And I think that is really important, that you have a support system, you enjoy whether it's your career or your hobbies or your friends or your kids or whatever it is, that you have other things going on and you are happy in other areas of your life. And you're not just looking for someone to fill a void, you're looking for someone to add something to your life. And I think that's really, really important to becoming to go into dating coming from a place of not lack, but who can I meet that's going to add to my life? And then I'm going to add to theirs too. And rather than, I'm so
I need to get
lonely.
married again.
Yeah. And I'm so
Maybe
lonely.
I don't want to go back to work. Maybe I'll just get married again. Alyssa, there's people who are like
Yes.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Now, I wanna ask you something. You get a lot of calls and people call you and they say, "Okay, I've never done online dating." I mean, I wanna tell everyone listening, this is what Alyssa does. She'll help you do your profile. She'll help you with matches. She'll help you pick your pictures. But Alyssa, do you ever get people who call you and you're like, "Wow, how long have you been divorced?" "Oh, well, I'm not divorced yet. It's been 6 months, but I really, I'm not judging anybody, but do you ever tell people like, you need to get in a better place? How do you say that in a nice way, and what do you tell them to
well,
do?
what I usually say to people is, listen, if you want to get out there and date and just have fun, and no, there are those people that just really want to, whether it's have sex or just go out and meet new people, whatever, forever, whatever, for whatever reason you
Because
want.
they're lonely.
Yes, that too, yeah. And that's fine. If you're going out and dating and knowing I'm not looking for my partner next, like I've only been, separated for 3 months and now I'm looking for my new partner. That's probably not the healthiest. I mean, I'm not a therapist, but yeah, I think that if you're going out and you just really and you know that it's just for casual, flings or whatever,
Or
that's
just
fine.
really to just have a social life.
Yeah,
And I'm so
yes.
glad you brought that up because I wanna tell people listening, I'm not telling you to sit home, I'm not telling you not to date, but don't do what I did and date all the wrong people because you haven't worked on yourself. You
Mhm.
know, that's the thing because once you work on yourself, you're gonna attract such better people for you,
Mhm.
such better people in general who are gonna treat you better, the relationship's gonna be better. So I think this is a great segue into what I wanna talk about is To you, Alyssa, a dating coach and someone who's in a really good relationship, what does a healthy relationship look like to you?
Yeah, great question. And that does take a bit to recognize, especially when you come from, a toxic relationship, marriage, whatever you're coming from, but maybe it's an unhealthy marriage, maybe it's abusive marriage. It's really hard to know what does a healthy relationship look like, and I really didn't know, and I think a lot of people, especially if I came from divorced parents, I didn't have great models to look to for that either. I didn't really know what that felt like to have a healthy relationship. So to me, I really just tried dating so many different types of people. That's really what my main goal was, is to just date. I mean, I dated people of all ages, of all different job types, of all different backgrounds, of all different races. I mean, I was
You
just
just
like,
kept a really open
I
mind.
was just so open, and I was like, I want to see who is going to make me feel really good about myself, And it doesn't matter, and any of those things don't really matter as long as they're gonna be really good to you, right? So I really kept a very wide open mind and wide net, and and then I really narrowed in on. I started recognizing, of course, the red flags and those kinds of things quicker. The faster you can find those, the better. And then I felt myself getting closer and closer because with each person I dated leading up to meeting Yoav, it was, you know, almost all the things were there. It was like with each new person, I was like, okay, this is really great. Okay, wait, this is not quite right. And then the next person was even closer to that. And then I finally met him. And what I really noticed with those last few relationships, even leading up to Yoav and then with him, is how I felt. It's really how I felt around the person. I felt good about myself. I didn't feel insecure. I left feeling fulfilled. Like if leaving the date, I felt fulfilled rather than, wait, I shouldn't have said that, or oh, yeah, why did I do that, or oh, why did he say that, and those things like self doubt. It was I got to a point where I just would leave the person and feel really great. Like that was so fun, and I feel fulfilled, and I feel good about myself. I feel confident. I don't feel insecure. And that was really key for me.
You just brought up the number one reason I tell people of what a healthy relationship looks like. You just brought up number one. This is also in my book. What does a healthy relationship look like? The number one thing is exactly what you just said, that when you're with the person, you like who you are, you feel good about yourself. You're like thinking to yourself, I'm so lucky to have him, but he's so lucky to have me too.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
have you ever dated? Because Alyssa, I dated this guy. It was on again, off again. It was all on his terms. It was a complete nightmare. It was the first year I was getting on
I'm
board.
guilty of that too.
Okay, this guy, every time I either ran into him, I looked awful. He was always with a girl, I was always by myself. I always felt like a jerk when I always felt like I said the wrong thing. He could not have made me feel any worse about myself. In fact, he lives in my same town, and even now when I run into him, I feel like either I don't have makeup on, like there's always something that sheds in a bad light, and I don't think that's an accident. I think that just is him and our karma together, and I ran as far away from him as possible. He's in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, good that you recognize that. I remember reading that actually. Yeah. No, it's good that you recognize that. And I think it does take some practice. And I think that's something that women get frustrated with when they're online dating is, there are a lot of men out there that are, could really use a lot of therapy and a lot of other
Right.
things. And I think
And
they
if
can
you
really.
recognize that the guy hasn't worked on himself,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm using that, that's a nice way of saying there's a lot of, messed up people that don't know how to treat women. I'll just say that.
Absolutely, I
And
agree.
and I really feel like women, if I think they get bogged down in that and like kind of mired in that negativity of like, oh, there's no one good out there. There's no one good out there. Well, listen, that is coming from a place of lack is not good. Like you have to believe that there are good men out there and there is someone out there for you. And I really, this is such a cliche, I know, but I do believe there's a lid for every pot. And I think it really is about being open to that. Like you really have to open yourself up and really believing that that's out there for you.
And people talk a lot about manifesting love. I
Mhm.
truly believe the number one way to manifest love, real love, is to work on yourself.
Mhm.
Work on yourself, be the best person you can be, put yourself out there, start doing like open your mind, do different hobbies, get in some groups, a hiking group, a running club. Remember
Yeah.
Miranda met that guy in Sex in the City when she was like in a one, it was a weight loss group, and another one was a running group. So, like, if you put yourself out there, love will come to you. I really, really believe that. I want to close this out with a couple more things that I think are key in a healthy relationship, and then, Alyssa, you can give me yours or tell me if you agree. 1, you have to trust the person. You might think this guy is the hottest guy in the world, the sex is great, you're having a great time, he has so much money, but if you don't trust him, you will know so quickly. If your gut just says, I don't really know if I trust him, that's the number one. Also, is he committed? The guy has to be totally into wanting the relationship for long term because stuff's gonna happen. You might, God forbid, break your ankle and need him to take you to the emergency room and give you baths and help you recover. Is he gonna be there? Ask yourself that.
Mhm.
What else am I leaving out? Do you like spending time with him? People always say like, "Oh, we're so opposite. We're such a good match." No, that is not true. Do you think that is? Do you think opposites attract?
I think they can. I mean, yeah, I do think that. I think that it's about complementing each other, you know? So I think you can have very different qualities and
Okay,
even
but
different
Alyssa,
interests.
what if you're with somebody and like you love taking sun vacations, you're not a skier, and this guy wants to take you on a ski trip? Like, I just don't, or you have different tastes in music and movies and bands, and I don't know. I just think
No.
when people have more in common, it's better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just, from my own experience, actually, it's funny that you just mentioned all those things. Yoav and I have very different tastes in all of those things you just mentioned. Not movies, but
Interesting.
music, vacations, hobbies.
So how
And
does that work
uh,
then?
it, it, I mean, honestly, I think that if you have a really strong relationship, I mean, I have friends that I like to go play tennis with, and he likes to go cycling with his friends. And, when I go on vacation, he's fine. Just, he goes with us on our beach vacations. He doesn't lie in the sun, but he'll go and he just does his thing and he'll walk around and he does work and he goes back to the room and takes a nap. And, we
Okay,
figure it
okay.
out.
So you just brought up another thing that I think is key in a healthy relationship. You're willing to give for each other. Like you
Yeah,
guys are willing
exactly.
to, okay, you want to take this sun vacation? Maybe not, but all right, I'll go with you. Will you go skiing with me next month?
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
kind of,
It's a give and
yeah,
take.
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Really
and I tell that to clients too because a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, everything's so great except we don't have any of the same hobbies or interests." And I say, "Listen, if you guys were 20, 25, that's one thing. But when you're middle-aged and at our age and you've already kind of, maybe you've already been married and had kids, you are at a different place. I mean, I enjoy doing things with my friends as much as I enjoy doing them with him. So, I don't need him for everything and
Yeah.
vice versa. And
Well, that's there you just hit on another, part of a healthy relationship. Both people are independent. They're
Mhm.
they also can lead not separate lives, but they're not relying on each other for their entertainment and post-work activities every night, and they
Yeah.
give each other the freedom to do what you want, especially after divorce and when you're older, because people are set in their ways, they like doing things. Also, people don't rely on each other for money. The best
Mhm. Mhm.
relationships are the kind where not one person is reliant on the other for money. I think that makes things a little awkward and unbalanced, and then you have to say to yourself, why am I really in this relationship? because I couldn't support myself if it wasn't. Who wants to live like that?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
What I'm telling people listening is find yourself professionally. Go back to work. Be that person who doesn't need anybody. And that's when the best relationship will happen for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. I
All right, I'll give you the last word. Tell my listeners any other tips. What's the number one thing you tell people to find love?
really it's back to what you said, or both of us said a few times in different ways, but I think the biggest thing is how you feel around the person. That is just the I can't even say it enough. I really can't.
is.
You can say that 100 times to someone, but if they haven't done the work on themselves, they may not know what that even feels like. But you really have to check in with with your nervous system after you leave a date. Like, how do I feel? And sometimes that like anxiety, nervousness that you think is like, "Oh my god, I it's butterflies and I'm so into this person." Sometimes that's not always a good thing, you know? And I think just
Well, unless you say, oh my gosh, I can tell he feels the same way too. This is great. Okay, this is the best way to put it, I think, in a nutshell. If you say to yourself, I'm so lucky that I'm dating so and so, that's not healthy. If you say, we're so lucky to be dating each other, that's a very big difference.
Yes. Yes. I fully agree with that. Yeah.
Alyssa, thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I want to tell my listeners, if you like what you heard, if you want to work with Alyssa in crafting your bio, selecting and editing your photos, having conversations with people online, fielding messages, and staying motivated, focused, and inspired, you can find Alyssa at stylemyprofilelyc.com. You can also find her in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.